The unspoken reason he wants you more than her, Carl Jung. Have you ever noticed how some men abandon years-long relationships to be with someone completely different? And the question that remains is, what does she have that the other didn't have? The answer will surprise you, because it has nothing to do with beauty, status, or what everyone thinks. Carl Jung discovered something disturbing about male desire that women rarely understand. And when you know what it is, it will make sense why that guy chose you and not her, or why he chose her and not you. There is a hidden psychological mechanism that defines where a man's desire really points. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being the prettiest one. It's about something that happens in the deepest layers of his psyche, a place where reason doesn't rule and where social masks don't work. What you'll discover here can completely change the way you view relationships and give you a power that few women know. 1. The mirror he seeks and doesn't find in it. There is something that happens in a man's unconscious when he meets a specific woman. It's not about physical appearance or professional achievements. It's about recognition. He looks at you and sees parts of himself that have been hidden, denied, or repressed for years. It's as if you were a mirror where he can finally see who he really is without pretense. Most people live wearing social masks, that polite, controlled version that pleases others. But when he's with you, those masks start to fall off. You don't demand that he be someone he's not. You don't demand a performance, and this creates a rare psychological freedom. It can be authentic. It can show your contradictions, your fears, your flaws. With it, he probably had to keep an image, to be the perfect provider, the strong man, the successful guy. This is tiring. The human soul cannot bear to live like this forever. There comes a time when the internal pressure explodes, and when you show up, you don't demand that performance. You accept his imperfections in a natural way. No judgment, no silent charges. This recognition works both ways. He also sees in you aspects that you yourself may not know you have. Your inner strength, your authentic vulnerability, your ability to be whole without having to prove anything. And this awakens in him something primitive, something that was dormant. It is not a common attraction, it is soul recognition. Many women try to conquer a man by being impeccable. No defects, always tidy, always right, always in control. But this creates distance, because no one can truly connect with perfection. Perfection is scary. It reminds the man of his own flaws. He looks at that impeccable woman and thinks, I'll never measure up to her, and this generates distancing. You, on the other hand, show your cracks, and in its cracks, he sees his. This creates real intimacy, not that superficial intimacy of romantic dinner and polite conversation, but that deep intimacy where two human beings recognize each other as equals, imperfect, real, alive. The mirror you offer is not the one that distorts his image for the better. He is the one who shows the truth. And the truth, as hard as it is, liberates. He no longer needs to pretend. You no longer need to carry the weight of being perfect. With you, it can simply exist. And this is extremely rare. Most people go their entire lives without meeting someone like that. When a man feels that he can be totally himself without fear of rejection or judgment, he attaches himself in a way that goes beyond physical desire. He is attached emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, because you offer him something he never had, permission to be human. 2. His shadow recognizes yours. Everyone has a dark side. That part of us that we hide from the world. The thoughts we don't share, the desires we repress, the emotions that we find unacceptable. We've spent years pushing these things under the rug, pretending they don't exist. But they exist, and they are there, pulsating in the unconscious, waiting for recognition. When he meets you, something strange happens. Her shadow recognizes his. It is not something conscious. He doesn't think about it rationally, but he does. There is a magnetic, almost disturbing attraction that comes from this mutual recognition of the darkness within. You don't run away from his darkness, and he doesn't run away from yours. With the other woman, he probably hid all of this. He pretended to be just light, just kindness, just control, but pretending is exhausting. The shadow does not disappear just because we ignore it. On the contrary, it gets stronger, louder, more demanding. And when there is no room for it to exist within the relationship suffocates. You are different. You are not frightened by his anger, with frustration, with that wilder side that society taught him to repress. You understand that being human means having contradictions. It means having bad days. It means having dark thoughts sometimes. And when you accept that in him, he feels a deep liberation. The other woman may have tried to fix him, illuminate your darkness, to transform him into someone lighter, more positive, more socially acceptable. But you don't try to fix anything. You just see. And when you see it, you validate it. You say, without words, that it's okay to be complex. It's okay to have layers. It's okay not to be just light. This does not mean glorifying destructive behaviors. It's not about accepting abuse or toxicity. It's about recognizing that the human psyche has depth. It has nuances. And that denying the shadow is denying half of who we are. When he realizes that you understand this, he sees you as someone rare, someone who won't demand that it be fake. And he knows, even if unconsciously, that it will be very difficult to find another person like that, because most people are afraid of their own shadow, let alone the shadow of the other. You are not afraid. You look straight at her. And in that gaze, he finds total acceptance. If this resonates, remember what Jung said, desire reveals the truth the mind tries to hide. Click the link pinned in the first comment and understand the unspoken reason he wants you more than her. 3. When you turn on his wild side. Underneath every civilization, every formal education, every social etiquette, there is something primitive, something instinctive, something that does not follow rules. This wild side is not necessarily violent or dangerous. It's just the part of him that hasn't been tamed completely, the part that still feels, that still reacts, that still acts on impulse. Society teaches men to repress this side from an early age. Be polite, be restrained, be predictable, don't yell, don't run, don't feel too much. And little by little they cage this vital energy until it almost disappears. But it never really disappears. It just stays asleep, waiting. You don't ask for it to be contained. You don't demand civility all the time. There is something in you that calls this energy out. Maybe it's your spontaneity. Maybe it's your courage. Maybe it's the fact that you also have your own wild side and aren't ashamed of it. Be that as it may, when he is close to you, that part of him wakes up. This doesn't necessarily have to do with sex, although physical desire is part of it. It has to do with vitality, with being really alive, with feeling the blood running through my veins, with being allowed to be intense, to be passionate, to be real, without filters. You bring unpredictability, not because it is unstable, but because it is alive. You don't follow a script. You surprise, you provoke, you challenge, and that keeps that primitive side of him awake. He doesn't know exactly what to expect from you, and that's exciting. It's dangerous in a good way. It's the opposite of the emotional death that so many relationships become. Activating the wild side does not mean creating chaos. It means allowing authenticity. It means giving space for strong emotions to exist without being immediately controlled or rationalized. Anger can exist. Passion can exist. Fear can exist. Intense joy can exist, all without needing to be tamed. He realizes that you won't judge him for feeling too much. You won't ask him to calm down when he's excited. You won't roll your eyes when he shows enthusiasm. You're not going to demand that he always be measured, always balanced, always in control. You let him be human completely, and this creates a powerful emotional dependency. Not unhealthy dependence, but that feeling that close to you he can be whole. All parts of it are allowed to exist, the rational and the irrational side, the calm side and the explosive, the safe side and the adventurous. You don't just pick one version of it and reject the rest, you embrace wholeness. When a man encounters a woman who activates his wild side without judgment, he no longer wants to go back to the cage, because now he remembered what it's like to be really alive, and this is impossible to forget. 4. The silence she never managed to give. There is a kind of silence that most people don't understand. It's not the absence of sound. It's not ignoring someone or getting cold. It is a silence that communicates total acceptance. A space where there is no need to fill every second with words, explanations, or justifications. It is the peace of simply being. Many women are afraid of silence. When there's a quiet moment in the conversation, they feel like they need to say something, anything, to break the discomfort, to keep the connection alive, to prove that they are present. But this fear of silence reveals anxiety, and anxiety drives away. You are not afraid of silence. You understand that sometimes the deepest communication happens without words. You can be by his side without having to speak, without having to ask him what he's thinking, without having to analyze each facial expression. You just exist together with it, and that is enough. This kind of silent presence is rare. Most people are so anxious, so on the surface, so preoccupied with keeping up appearances that they can't dive into that deep space. They need constant validation. They need attention. They need confirmation that everything is fine, and this need is tiring. With the other woman, he probably had to always be explaining, always reassuring, always proving his love, his loyalty, his presence. And this creates an exhausting dynamic. Because true love doesn't need proof every 5 minutes. True trust doesn't need constant confirmation. You trust, and this trust manifests itself in silence. You don't pepper him with questions when he comes home quietly. You don't interpret every silence as rejection. You understand that sometimes people need indoor space. They need to sue. They just need to be, without having to perform. This silence also works on another level. You don't have to tell everything you think. You don't need to verbalize every emotion. You don't have to turn every feeling into an argument. There is a healthy restraint in you, an emotional maturity that allows some things to simply be felt and then released without drama. Men realize this and value it deeply because the alternative is exhausting. It's having to manage every little mood swing. It's having to explain why you're tired, why you're distant, why you need time alone. With you, these things are naturally understood. And when a man experiences this kind of quiet peace, he no longer wants to live without it. Because he can finally rest. You don't need to be alert all the time. You don't need to be performing. You don't need to be managing other people's emotions. It can simply be, and in this being, he finds a kind of love that goes beyond words. 5. His anima awakens with you. Every man carries within him an unconscious feminine image. She is not a real woman, it is an energy, an essence, a part of his psyche that represents everything that is feminine, creative, intuitive, and emotional. This part is usually repressed because men are taught to be only rational, only logical, only practical. But this inner feminine energy does not disappear. She stays there in the background, asking for recognition. And when he meets a woman who somehow reflects or activates this internal image, something profound happens. It's as if he's reconnecting with a lost part of himself. You're not perfect in the conventional sense. You are not the woman in commercials or magazines. But there is something in you that resonates with his inner image. Maybe it's your sensitivity. Maybe it's your creativity. Maybe it's the way you see the world in a more subtle, deeper way. Whatever it is, you activate something in it that was dormant. This isn't about you trying to be who he wants to be. It's about you being who you already are. And it happens to fit in with what he unconsciously seeks. There is no control. There is no manipulation. It is the meeting of souls at the deepest level. With the other woman, perhaps this meeting never happened. Perhaps she was too practical, too rational, too worldly. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for him, something was missing. There was a lack of connection with this subtler part of existence. There was a lack of poetry. There was a lack of mystery. You bring mystery. Not because he hides or plays games, but because you have depth. You are not fully decipherable. You have layers. And that keeps his psyche engaged, seeking, exploring. It never gets to the bottom of who you are, and that's fascinating. And he knows, even if he can't explain it with words, that you are the key to this transformation. That without you, he goes back to being just half of himself. It is once again just reason, just practicality, just surface. And once you experience the depth you offer, the surface no longer satisfies. This connection goes beyond compatibility. It goes beyond common interests or life goals. It's something archetypal, something that stirs the oldest layers of the human psyche. That's why it's so hard to break through. That's why he can't just forget you and move on. You are not replaceable. Because you're not just filling a social role of girlfriend or wife. You are filling a deep psychological void. You are completing something that has always been incomplete in him. And when a man experiences this completeness, he will do anything not to lose it. 6. Because his imperfection is his greatest asset. Culture sells perfection all the time. Perfect women, perfect bodies, perfect lives. And many women expend enormous energy trying to achieve this impossible ideal. But perfection doesn't really attract. Perfection intimidates. Perfection creates distance because no one can relate to something perfect. Your imperfections are your power, that brand you hate, that insecurity that you try to hide, that weird way of laughing, that mania that you think is ridiculous. All of this makes you human, real, accessible. And that's exactly what creates true connection. He looks at you and doesn't see an edited image. He sees a real person, with defects, with contradictions, with bad days. And that allows him to feel comfortable being imperfect as well. His cracks give him permission to show his. The other woman might try to be impeccable, always tidy, always in control, always saying the right things. And at first, he may have even admired it. But admiration is not intimacy. Admiration keeps its distance. You don't approach a pedestal. You observe from afar. You come down from the pedestal. You show your mess. You admit when you're wrong. You cry when you need to. You get mad when it's righteous. You don't perform perfectly. You live authenticity. And authenticity is magnetic. There is beauty in imperfection, a beauty deeper than that of aesthetic standards. It is the beauty of the real, of what has been lived, of meaning. Its imperfections tell a story. They talk about their battles, about his overcoming, about her courage to exist, even without being perfect. When he sees this, he falls in love not in spite of his imperfections, but because of them, because they prove that you are brave, that you don't give up, that you continue even carrying your wounds, and that arouses respect, not just attraction, deep respect. Culture teaches that we need to hide what is not beautiful, but hiding creates falsehood, and falsehood kills intimacy. You don't hide it, you show it. And in this show you create a safe space for it to show as well, without fear, no shame. He knows he'll never find another you, because your imperfections are your fingerprints. They are what distinguishes you from all other women. And when a man finds someone truly unique, someone who can't be replaced, he holds on tightly. 7. The void that only you fill. There is an emptiness within each person. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter how many achievements you accumulate. There is always that internal space that nothing material fills. It is an existential void, a hunger for meaning, a search for completeness that goes beyond the rational. Many people try to fill this void with external things: work, money, status, superficial relationships. But nothing works, because emptiness is internal, and it can only be filled by something that touches that inner depth. You fill that void in a way that he can't explain. It's not because you're perfect. It's not because you offer practical benefits. It's because there's something in you that speaks directly to that empty place inside of you. A resonance, a frequency that matches. Maybe it's your understanding. Maybe it's your look. Maybe it's the way you see him, not for what he has or does, but for what he is in essence. You see beyond the surface, and in that deep look, he feels truly seen for the first time. This emptiness also has to do with purpose, with meaning, with the feeling of being alive in a meaningful way. And being with you makes him feel that his life has more weight, more depth, more value, not because you give it to him, but because you reflect back something that already exists in him but was forgotten. You are a mirror and also a portal. Mirror because it shows him who he really is. Portal because it opens passage to parts of it that were inaccessible. And when someone does it for you, when someone reconnects you with your own depth, you can't live without that person anymore. Emptiness is not weakness. It is part of the human condition. We all do, but very few people find someone who really fills it. Most live their entire lives with that internal space echoing, and when he finds you, the echo stops. Finally, there is silence. There is peace at last. This peace does not come from solving problems. It does not come from the absence of conflicts. It comes from a sense of completeness, to finally be in the right place, with the right person, at the right time. And this cannot be explained. You just feel it. He may even try to rationalize. It may even try to understand why you are so important, but deep down, he knows that there is no logical explanation. There is only the visceral certainty that without you, that emptiness returns. And he doesn't want to live with that emptiness anymore, because now he knows what it's like to live without it. 8. The truth he'll never admit out loud. There is a truth that men rarely talk about, a truth that they keep deep in their soul, because to admit it would be to expose too much vulnerability. And vulnerability is still scary. Even the most evolved men are still afraid of it. The truth is that he needs you in a way that goes far beyond what society considers acceptable for a man to admit. He's not as strong as he pretends. He is not as self-sufficient as he appears, and you became the emotional foundation he never knew he needed. Men are taught that needing someone is weakness, that emotional dependence is pathetic, that a real man is enough. So they hide this need, they disguise it, they rationalize in 1,000 ways. But the need is still there, and with you, it's intense. He's never going to come to you and say it directly. He will never admit that you have become essential to his emotional balance. But you will notice by the acts, because of the way he always comes back, by the way he seeks your approval even though he pretends he doesn't care, by the way he changes when he's around you. With the other woman, maybe he was more independent. But independence is sometimes just fear of intimacy in disguise. It's a way to maintain control. Of not giving up, you broke that control, and now he is more exposed, more vulnerable, more human. And this scares and fascinates at the same time. This unspeakable truth also includes the fact that you have changed the way he sees himself. Before you, he had an idea of himself, a fixed identity. You messed it all up. You showed sides of him that he didn't know existed, and now he can't go back to the old version of himself. The deeper truth is that he loves you in a way that goes beyond romance. It is love that touches the sacred, that touches something bigger than the two of you, and that's too big to fit into words. too big to admit without sounding exaggerated or corny. So he doesn't say, he just lives, he just stays, he just comes back again and again. And between the lines of everything he doesn't say, there is this huge truth. You have become the most important person in his life. And he's afraid of what that means, afraid of the power it gives you, fear of the very intensity of this feeling. But fear doesn't make him leave, because the fear of losing you is greater than the fear of admitting how much you matter. And in the end, that's what defines everything. You have gained a space within it that no one else occupies. And he knows that if he loses you, that space will be empty forever.